Welcome to A Game of Ice and Fire, a video series devoted to a Song of Ice and Fire war game by Cool Mini or Not. We cover all aspects of the hobby with tactics list build videos, painting tutorials of varying levels, and battle reports. The Night's Watch player ended up getting the first activation, and they open up by moving the Sworn Brothers up to the objective that I'm going to hate for almost the entirety of this game. And it's the one that shuts off an NCU when you claim it, and you can't use their abilities again until that objective's cleared off. I like Catelyn for being able to remove conditions in this army. My armor saves aren't super great, and I don't like having my combat effectiveness limited by the weakened token, so that's a really good one. But I'm really bummed out that my Berserkers are not going to be contributing early in the game to their fullest, and that my Great Axes and Stark Sworn Swords won't be able to contribute to their fullest towards the later parts of the game when they really need it. Next up, we've got the Veterans moving up towards the middle. And I have this the playback on this video going quite fast. This isn't the typical expectation for what the future is going to hold for these videos, but there is a lot of hesitation and rules checking in this game. My opponent and I are both fairly new to the game. I think this is only my third game, and this is only his second, and the first one with Night's Watch. So we're still learning, not just on the game side, but I'm also learning on the audio and visual side, so I appreciate everyone bearing with me. I'm just really excited about this game and want to get out content for it because I enjoy producing it. My opponent starts utilizing some of his NCU abilities by putting Bow and Marsh on the maneuver board, and that's something that I do worry about in this game, is that my opponent has 3 NCUs, and I've only got one that is, at this very moment, neutered. The maneuver was utilized on the Sworn Brothers on the top of the screen to claim that objective to shut off Catelyn. So I dropped Catelyn on the tactics position so that I can fill up my hand a little bit more and get some cool stuff. Now, I try to play a very clean game. That's a goal for all the games that I play, but I am still learning here, and my opponent takes a moment to remind me that the fire that burns against the cold does allow him to remove conditions, and is kind enough to let me move that condition token over to the veteran unit. I think the one that they have is the horn that wakes the sleepers. Or, yeah, I believe that's the vow that they ended up rolling. Or not rolling, but flipping with the Night's Watch captain. So we're just trying to discuss how the vows work, and I was letting my opponent know that they can be played like tactics cards, and they don't need to stay attached to them. I think he ended up using another fire that burns against the cold to clear the condition, but since he didn't own the crown, he wasn't able to keep the vow there. He does, however, activate the veterans to move up to claim that. I'm just checking to see what the potential for a next turn charge with the Great Axes is going to look like. And the other unit of Berserkers ends up running straight up the field, right through the middle of those palisades. And I'm happy for that, because the opposite the palisades at the very top of the board proved to be quite an issue. Next, it looks like the other unit of Sworn Brothers is just marching towards the objective that they're going to want to live on. And I respond in kind by getting Greatjon's unit of Sworn Swords up the table as well, because the objective that they're heading towards is the one that gives a unit vicious and vulnerable or something like that, or the ability to issue vulnerable. Forget the exact wording on that objective. Oh, you gain Sundering and Vicious. You do take D3 wounds, so that if I ever need to cause wounds to my unit, that thing has got it all day. Take D3 from Stark's Fury, D3 from the objective, and D3 from Greatjon. Now, I don't advise doing that, because you could easily wipe out half the unit. So now we're just discussing what the rules are on the corpse pile. I am still trying to remember all the different drawbacks that the different pieces of terrain have. So he was just trying to see what that meant. I had to look it up to figure it out. You can see that the lower part of my board is starting to get bottlenecked because of that palisade that got placed at the furthest edge that it could. So I'm just trying to get them into a position to either take that objective or charge in on anything that comes in that might kill the Great Axes. Summer uses her free maneuver or his free maneuver. Pretty sure Summer's a deal. To just kind of land in front of the Stark Sworn Swords. Now, as I said, this is my opponent's first game with Night Watch, so he does not do the free maneuver with Ghost, or I just don't know the Night's Watch very well myself, and that Ghost doesn't have a free maneuver. I thought all the Dire Wolves did. I guess actually Ghost doesn't get the free maneuver. It's a good enough model on its own. So we had a jump here because I've been really racking my brain on what to do with this top piece of palisade terrain. In War Machine, the game that I'm more familiar with, I will always play with linear obstacles as the actual obstacle that's printed on the 2D terrain, but I didn't want to pull in my bias from that game to this one and use it to my advantage, so instead I treated the entirety of the cardboard cutout like the impassable piece of terrain. So now not only am I bottlenecked on the lower part of the screen, but now my other berserkers are going to have to take the long way around the block to get to those Sworn Brothers that are up on the top screen, even if they can get there based on where they're positioned. Because the palisade is just at the right length from one another. The palisades are at the right length from one another to where I can only fit one unit in there at a time, and then even have a bit of a difficult time trying to get the angle for their charges. So next up, this is where I get to experiment to see if they can actually clear the palisades, and they do. So now I'm able to get a charge in on these veterans. And for this one, I do get a clutch tactics card play with Winter is Coming, to where the veterans don't get to use their counterattack order, and my opponent doesn't get to play any tactics cards this turn. I didn't take the swords over with Catelyn. I ended up taking the maneuver spot with her earlier so that I could get some positioning done properly. And to be honest here, I might have been moving a little too fast and was looking at Swift Advance and Winter is Coming, and ended up just charging with the berserkers. I don't know what happened there. I either got confused or I'm currently confused and not playing that activation outright. But they do hit quite a bit. They end up inflicting 5 wounds on the veterans. But this Night Watch army is a pretty big pain in the butt, and I let my opponent borrow my Craster from my Free Folk unit, or not Free Folk unit, my Free Folk box, and Master Amon just came on the table, so it's packed with a bunch of healing, and we do the math real quick, and based on Amon taking the wealth zone, there's no way he can't put 5 models back into that unit, so that unit gets everything back, which is a super bummer for me, because not only do I have to worry about all these weird positioning kerfuffles that I've gotten myself into, but now I'm finally getting to unpack my melee-centric beaters, and I'm not getting any great effect out of them. So the Great Axes move up in order to beta charge out of the bottom screen Sworn Brothers. I'm hoping to get some use out of skin changing to take the brunt of that damage and force the activation. Not that I thought the Sworn Brothers were going anywhere else, so I probably could have held the Great Axe activation, but with them only being speed 4 and me not having the greatest cards in my hand, tactics-wise, I don't think that they would have really done anything different, or that my opponent would have waited any longer to move those guys, because he could just pivot the rest of his units and put down his other 2 NCUs in order to bait out the Great Axe activation so that he could charge them. I think I just really wanted to see how the skin changing order functioned for this unit to see if it was worthwhile. Now, in the future, I hope to have my opponent on these videos as well, so that we can both discuss what we were thinking from each perspective. But right now, I'm already struggling a bit with the audio quality. In addition to learning the game, I'm also trying to learn the production stuff, so it's just going to take me a little while to figure all this stuff out, and I appreciate everyone's patience and support. Yeah, I must have not had I must have mixed up some tactics cards, because it looked like the Berserkers made another attack, so maybe I had merged the Swift Advance with Winter is Coming and just wasn't thinking, or not Swift Advance, but Sudden Charge. So that's a learning point to take to my next game, just to slow down and read the cards. I am quite notorious for putting rules together, and that's usually where my problems come with some of these games, is I just read the rules halfway through and start blending for whatever reason. But like I said, I try to be a clean player, it just doesn't always happen on accident. But we do get to see Bowen go down on the combat zone to get the veterans to attack again on the Berserkers. And I think my opponent might have just played the vow that helps their combat out, the Sword in the Darkness. Yeah, they made me vulnerable, and then got an extra couple dice in. Or maybe they just left the other vow. There is a lot to remember from these games. I only played this game last week, probably Wednesday I think it was, and today's Sunday. So it was still this week. But I need to figure out a way to catalog the cards that get played a little bit better. Now I could have had the audio recording from this game as well, but we were in my local game store, and there was, for some reason, Dungeons and Dragons in public has just like soared or skyrocketed in popularity. So there were 5 or 6 groups that were just, it seemed like they were like audibly trying to outdo each other when they were playing their game. So we had a difficult time even just understanding ourselves when we were trying to do this. So having the audio on wouldn't have really gotten me anywhere. I think being able to speed up the video and comment over it just leads to it's what I appreciate about reports, and it's what I'm better at doing, I think. So that's what I stick with. So the veterans ended up doing enough damage to the berserkers to wipe the whole unit, but I did get to windmill slam Lash out onto the table and make a full attack with the berserkers into the veterans, and we killed another 5 models, which will probably just get healed back again, because that's the type of list that this is. I feel like if I had more of my units in relevant places, that the mass amount of healing in this army wouldn't be as bothersome as it is, but right now it's getting a little frustrating. So I've kind of got a bunch of things working against me. I've got the table working against me, and the healing working against me. I don't feel like my dice have been extremely horrible. I think they've been pretty decent, all things to be considered. But now I'm getting a little antsy, and I feel like I need to start really putting damage out. So I put Summer into the veteran unit that had wiped out those berserkers. I only end up getting a couple hits through, and my opponent ends up losing 1 model out of that. So I don't feel like this was a really great utilization of Summer. But keeping Summer next to Bran and Hodor is, I think, how you have to play this unit, which is a little unfortunate. Whereas Ghost can be a little bit ways away from Jon Snow and be able to do things like claim objectives. And maybe I just need to ignore that part of Bran and Hodor's synergies and just have Summer march off on her own and do her own thing, or his own thing. I'm pretty sure Summer's a male dog. But now he triggers my trap card, which not that I'm actually playing the card or anything, but I use the skin changing order just to see how this pans out for me, and I don't take a ton of casualties for it. And not having it be a disordered charge is effectual too. Like, only a couple hits connect, and I only lost 3 great axes. So skin changing is a really cool ability. It's probably going to be something I learn to utilize better in the future, just because I don't think baiting a charge with the great axes was my finest moment in this game. And now my opponent's Ghost just huddles up onto an objective where they can start forcing panic, or not forcing panic tests, but they have to take one when they claim it. Or no, that's the one that he gets to force a unit to take a panic test, and now I'm frantically looking through my hand because you can see I've rolled double 1s on that panic test, and he chose to do it on my stupid great axes. So they were sitting pretty with skin changing, and then just got royally screwed by taking a digger on those double 1s. So not much you can do about that. I never get tilted in games when stuff like this happens. I'm usually pretty calm and collected, so this was just my 1 in 36 chance to have that happen, and I just gotta try and come back from it. I can't control the dice, but I can control what I do on the table, so I try to keep myself together and soldier forward. I think that's just a Jon Snow tactic card that lets him heal up a unit and then maybe swing again. I'm not sure. was the For the Watch card for Jon Snow. So we got a couple points back and was able to make an attack. And ended up killing Summer. So now that activation's gone for me. So my opponent and I are pretty even on units on the table, but they've still got 3 NCUs and I've only got 1, so it's a little bit on the painful side to have to exist this way. Especially since the part of Caitlyn that I need right now to make those great axes like hit real hard is completely robbed from me. So I put her on the wealth zone to try and get the great axe unit back up to snuff, and I ended up, getting the 3 that I want out of it. But my opponent takes the opportunity to try and counter my healing by grabbing the swords spot and making an attack against those great axes. A good number of hits connect, so I've got 6 saves to take, and I fail 3, so I've at least saved that unit with that action. There's a lot of interesting, cool counterplay that can happen on the tactics board. Makes me a little bummed that this unit doesn't, or that this army doesn't have another NCU in it. But I think I need to play another game as a single NCU army, because the Sworn Swords that are in the back are not doing anything. Like, they're just sitting there, just treading water. They're just ineffectual. So taking them out to get another NCU and trying to alter some things in the list could be something that I explore. But I don't want to make any knee-jerk changes to the list before I've played a couple times. I always feel like every list that you play in any game should be played like 3 or 4 times before you start altering it, so you can get a good set of data to let you know what's working and what's not. So now I'm checking some rules because the Greatjon and his Sworn Swords made a charge with while being on that objective. And I was just checking to see if there was any wording on stacking abilities, but the way that I think I was overthinking how the abilities interacted. I was just a little cloudy from that morale test a little bit. It shook me a bit. So with the Sword Captain in there and Stark Fury going. Not Sword Captain, it's just Greatjon that's in there. So I don't get the rerolls, but I got the rerolls for charges. But with Stark Fury, I take 2. I ended up killing a couple Sworn Brothers. And now the morale for them, I think it takes off 1 guy. Yep. And then I have another D3 to take. I think the first one was for the D3 from the objective, and then the second one was from the Stark Fury. So we lost a whole rank out of those attacks, and we traded it for a couple Sworn Swords. But now I think my opponent's just trying to figure out if Ghost should stay on that objective or unpack. Instead, they decide to bide their time by putting out Maester Aemon on the tactics zone to grab a couple more. Or that could be Bowen Marsh. I can't remember the order. It looked like it was Bowen Marsh that came on. But Bowen Marsh plus the tactics zone is pretty clutch for these Night's Watch players. That's a good NCU right there. And then having Craster too, like, there's just so much fun synergy within the Night's Watch stuff. So if you have the listing of like Master Aemon or Maester Aemon, Craster, and Bowen Marsh, you get to double down on tactics cards when you want them, which is good for Night's Watch, and you get to double down on healing, which is also good for Night's Watch. There's just a lot of fun things in this army that can feel a little over the top, but it's just really synergistic, and I think that this list has enough to cut through that healing. It's just that those Palisades are totally cramping my style. So the Great Axes are swinging into the Sworn Brothers that they're engaged with, and this is where I get to be a little bit excited about what I'm doing, because I take the Mighty Cleave here, and now I'm just pointing out that these are how many extra saves you'll have to take because you failed this many. I did replace my opponent's D3 because he didn't notice that the white die in the set was a D3. So he's just contemplating how many wounds he's taken. I believe we grabbed most of the unit, if not all of it, but a well-timed tactics card comes down to keep the unit in the game. I think it's the until my watch ends or something like that, where if the unit's wiped out, they get to keep one wound in it. So that Knight's Captain sticks around. So close to getting the first unit off the table at the cost of, what have I lost now? 2 units so far? Almost 3. So tons of saves coming out from the Sworn Swords. Lost a huge chunk of their army, or of their unit. With Ghost there being able to put out automatic wounds, even if I kill the last Night's Watch captain, there's a good chance that Snow can just, or not, yeah, Ghost, Jesus, that Snow can come around, I did it again, that Ghost can come around and start mopping up my units all Pac-Man style. So the Sworn Swords just do what they do, or do what they're doing this game, and they're just camping out on an objective because that's about all they can do. They have to like dip their toe into it. Also, it's so embarrassing. These palisades are just the death of me. So my opponent's getting nutty with the summer, leaving the objective to come into Greatjon's unit. There's not much left, and Greatjon is my commander, but this game mode does not, from what I understand, have any kill points that are awarded out of it. It's all just from objectives, and we end up losing just one Sworn Sword on that charge. But now the Outriders get to activate, and they're playing the support role pretty well, in that now they've done their maneuver, and then they can just burn back onto that objective. It looks like I might have missed an activation here where Craster ended up taking up the maneuver board too. So I think I'm calculating points right now, and I'm double checking to see if the scenario has the kill points awarded, because we're getting pretty close here. I think my opponent's sitting at 6 right now, and I'm sitting at 2. But then I confirm that there's no kill points from what I could understand in the mission or game mode. So we keep trucking forward and seeing if I can scrape anything out of this. That back unit of Sworn Brothers is just destroying me with that NCU business. Not being able to get to those at all, and making it so that my opponent was able to concentrate his healing efforts on 1 or 2 units really was a bad move for me. It just wasn't, things weren't going the way I wanted it to. And then on top of that, my Berserkers end up rolling a disordered charge to get into the middle unit of Sworn Brothers. But it doesn't matter so much. It looks like we hit with everything but 1, so he's got 7 saves to make, and loses a couple. I make him re-roll the successes, and he loses a couple more off of it. So we've got 5 models off that unit. It's almost like deja vu, right? And then the morale test ends up taking another one. After playing with the 2 units of Berserkers with the Sword Captain, I'm really perfectly fine with not putting the Umber Champion in here. I'd like to, because I like everything that is Umber, but the Sworn Sword Captain just goes the extra mile with those guys, so I just don't see much of a reason to put one in there with this style of list. And then we had Ghost take another chunk out of the Stark Sworn Sword unit that Greatjon was in. That was in. He's still there. He's existing. So now the Great Axes are activating. They are swinging with the Executioner's Axe into that last Night Watch Captain, just to get it out of there. I don't want my opponent spiking any saves or anything like that. So they shift up for whatever reason. They know that they're going to probably not last much longer, and Ghost ends up taking the last chunk out of the Greatjon. I don't know if Ghost activated twice this game, or if there was some card that got Ghost to activate. At this point, I think we were both really, we feel like we've been playing this game for a really long time. I think overall it took a couple hours when everything was said and done, because we were looking up so much rules, and I think some people in the game store were trying to communicate with us while we were trying to play because they were interested in the game, so, which is always good. I don't mind that. It was just it just added some extra time to our game, which is fine. I was able to cut most of it out. We lose the last Great Axe from some shooting, so now just Hodor and Bran are hanging out in there. But the big bummer here is that Ghost has now taken another objective, giving my opponent 4 objectives. So unless I can do something to kill them off of another objective, I will be losing this game. And Aemon does his thing and comes down on that veteran unit. So my chances of wiping them out for the struggle to stay in the game are also expertly dashed. Then we take a couple saves on them and lose 2 from the veteran attack. So I think at this point I'm out activated, and my opponent needs to just gets to run the table until it's over. So not the best showing for the House Umber focused Stark list that I built. I still think in theory the list works well. I just need to get a rematch to fix some of the problems that were happening in this game. The terrain placement, the objective placement was pretty skewed, and I just need to get more time on the table with this army. I just need to learn it better. So I'll be looking for a rematch, probably be making a video report out of that just to make the Revengeance series. So thank you for watching the video. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Make sure to stop by our Facebook page, give us a like there. I post all the YouTube activity, along with a few other things here and there, some pictures and polls and stuff like that.